So this is it, the season finale. After watching for 16 episodes, let's see what this is all about. And let's see what happens when the ultimate sacrifice is required. Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing Timeless, episode 16, The Red Scare. When the team goes back to 1954 to ensure that Flynn doesn't change history, might one of them have to make the ultimate sacrifice. However, first we start with what I think is a really great time travel question. Are you the right you in the wrong timeline, or are you the wrong you in the right timeline? Because at the end of the day, the people that knew you in the alternate timeline that you just created knew that you. And as Lucy found out with her fiancé who had to fix up Rufus, the question is, who's the right you? And once again, we're back to why you don't weaponize time travel. Because at the end of the day, these things are crazy. Okay, but let's get into specifics of the episode. So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time. As one of 3 shows that's regularly handling time travel that I cover, my head kinda needs a little bit to wrap around this. But, at the end of the day, this all started with Lucy being pulled into all this because she's actually part of Rittenhouse and didn't know it, and Wyatt being pulled into this because he was the only soldier available, and of course Rufus being pulled into this because he was the only pilot they had left. And all of this because an organization known as Rittenhouse had killed someone named Garcia Flynn's family because he had found out too much about them, and as such, he stole a time machine created by Rittenhouse themselves. Our trio of heroes have chased Flynn through history, some very dramatic moments, and as such, have changed and altered the timeline. The history of this world is no longer the history of ours. The Hindenburg didn't blow up coming in, it blew up going out. The Alamo was lost, all sorts of little tiny changes along the way, and all of it had only a handful of repercussions. There's a new James Bond movie starring Sean Connery. There's the fact that Lucy's sister was never born, and all in all, it was pretty confusing. So my first question to you is, before the episode even began, have you followed all of this? Have you kept up with what and who Rittenhouse is, and what all the main players are? Okay, well let's talk about tonight. Rufus is hurt. They need to use his girlfriend to get to be the pilot because they need someone to fly the lifeboat. We end up with both time machines back in the 1950s during the Red Scare. To be honest, I think that McCarthyism is saved till the end here because it's the perfect analogy for Flynn. The idea that you're paranoid, but are you really paranoid, or are they really out to get you? Also, the idea of Rittenhouse having McCarthy in their pocket is rather interesting. He's famously known as the person who wouldn't take sides, the person who thought he was cleaning house. But then again, Flynn said something great. Everyone's the hero of their own story. That's important because, at least in my humble opinion, that's how you write a good villain. Anyone can write a mustache twirling, oh, I'm going to take over the world, or I'm going to kill these people for no reason. You can write them as a force of nature. But the really ones you care about, the ones that you really get inside your head, are the ones that think they're the good guys, the ones that are doing things because they think it's right. Those are the ones that have dimensions. Magneto thinks he's leading his people, thinks he's stopping a genocide. And then there's Flynn. Flynn's the villain because he's trapped, because he has no other place to go, because he's been backed into this corner. And to be honest, he's also the hero of this story, if you really think about it. Because if he didn't start all of this, Lucy and Wyatt and Rufus wouldn't have been recruited. And if they weren't recruited, then none of this would have happened. Rittenhouse would have won. And where I'm not sure exactly what that means, I'm pretty sure that Wyatt and Lucy wouldn't be happy with that outcome. Now, this episode also has Wyatt saving the day, and the will they won't they between him and Lucy becomes even more apparent. Once again, even the doctor fiance points out the fact, wait, is it because of him? And she's like, oh, no, totally not him. So, one more question for you. How obvious is it? It's totally him that's the problem there. Slight romantic subplots aside, we have a whole lot going on in tonight's episode, including the fact that Rittenhouse itself is front and center for the first real time. We have them in the future, well, in the present, well, whatever, facing off against the FBI, and we have them in the past facing off against all of our time travelers. And I do mean all of them, because Flynn, Wyatt, and Lucy are all teaming up to stop Rittenhouse. Why? Because, well, they're really bad. And we have a little bit of it's bad to be a minority in the 1950s, this time with homosexuality, because Rufus is pretty much out of it. Because Rufus was shot, and his girlfriend is stroking out. That's right. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but they brought Gia back in time with them. We learn a little more about the rules of time travel here, because Rufus says that the pod is only meant for 3 people, which we always knew, but I thought that was a space thing, not a time-space thing. And as he points out, gee, maybe I'll just Wikipedia what happens when you try to throw extra people through a wormhole. So I guess that we now know that the machines are built with only a small amount of space in them for a reason. You can only bring so many. Makes me wonder about Flynn and his team sometimes. But either way, she's stroking out because of this, and he's begging for her to just live long enough for him to tell her how he loves her. And it's very heart-touching. Meanwhile, we have the battle going on. However, it's a battle not being fought with guns or with swords. No, it's a battle being fought with thoughts. And we have our little Lucy coming up with a plan on how to stop them. Because you see, she realizes that when you have a time machine, you have all of time in the world. And now I'm going to just slightly break from this and talk about a comic book for a minute. There was a comic book called DC 1,000,000, and in it, the Justice League gets splintered in half. Half the team is in modern day, half of them is a million years in the future, in the 853rd century. And they have to figure out a way to help their allies in the future. And Huntress says the best thing any time traveler can say. Hey, wait a minute. I think we can just start our plan now. So Lucy starts with the same idea, and you know what? Hats off to them, because you know what? This is time travel brilliance. She has her grandfather stay in Rittenhouse and collect all the information they need, not so they can shut it down in the past like Flynn wants to, but so they can set it off now and stop it and end this once and for all. And the plan looks like it's working. In fact, everything's coming up roses. Flynn himself, though, gets screwed over in all this, because he's supposed to be able to use the time machine to go back one last time. That's what was in the deal. But they don't let him. Lucy gets followed, and boom, he's captured. But before he is, he mentions the fact that future her is the one that gave him the diary. And like I said before, the idea of someone coming back from the future was what could make this an even better, more extreme series, an interesting one. We also now have the fact that Gia, via the time travel mishap and almost stroking out, has a vision of the future. A very bad future, one that needs to be avoided at all costs. But that all leads into how the episode ends. Because the trick that Lucy figured out at the end, the fact that she can play the long game, is what Rittenhouse has been playing the whole time. And they even had to plant their own pilot, their own mole, in Flynn's organization. And with that revelation, we now need to re-examine everything that's come before. Every trip, every bit of history that they've gone to from the beginning, from the Hindenburg all the way to now with the Red Scare, every change, and wonder exactly what Rittenhouse's long game really looks like, exactly what Rittenhouse understands, and how much control they can have over the timeline. And as we think about that, we need to think about what Season 2 is going to look like, and how much time travel is going to screw up history, time and time again. That vision of the bridge being destroyed, just everything. What is going to happen next? Well, I think that our team is going to have to figure that out, and we're going to have to figure out a way to save the whole world and the whole timeline. And if that sounds like a lot, then you haven't been paying attention, because that's what the whole series is about. At some point in the next week, I'll put up all my final thoughts as I clear through my head. If you'd like to see them, subscribe to this channel, like and share this video, and help me build this community, because I'd really like to dissect this, and at the end of this season, I think there's a lot for us to go over in future videos. Leave me a comment if there's something specific you have a question about. But for now, thank you for joining me as we walk through the heart of this story that's been told.